Hello and welcome as we continue our fancy deep dive series. We're with the AFC West at the moment with the Los Angeles Chargers, who have had some fancy relevant players over the last few years. Just a reminder, of course, that we are looking from a redraft perspective when we're talking about this players in this show. And, we're in a team where, the player on the screen is someone who Mark is in love with, and I'm sure he'll talk about at length later on in the show. But we start, as we always do, with quarterback, with Mr. Justin Herbert. And where are you with Justin Herbert from a fancy perspective this year, Mark?
The Chargers in general, I think, have hugely benefited this offseason. And Justin Herbert, on our winners show we did, looking at post-draft and through free agency, was one of my biggest winners for that. Start of last season, he didn't break 15 fantasy points weeks 1 to 7. His highest finish was QB 17, but week 8 onwards, 8 of top 12 of finishes were top 12 in 11 games. Significant upgrades around him, as we're going to talk about, but including that the O-line, which ranked dead last in many metrics last season. We also saw a little bit more rushing from him last year, so that worked out about an extra 2.5 points per game. No, he's not dual threat, but 2.5 points a game over the season is that difference maker that puts you kind of just a little bit more into that consistent QB1 conversation for me. I've got him as QB 10 overall. I really like him where he's going currently in round 9, ADP QB 11. If you like to wait a little bit later for your QB, I think Justin Herbert is a fantastic player to target. Top 6 finish on the year doesn't feel impossible, especially given the caliber of some of the players we're going to mention around him and those upgrades as well. Yeah, I really like Justin Herbert this year, and I think we've both been fans of him on the show for a little while, haven't we? Are you feeling optimistic about this season, him repaying a little bit of that from previous years?
Yeah, I think Herbert's an interesting one. I think like last year he had a really kind of bounce back season in a real life perspective. His QB rating went up. He had very few interceptions. I think it was 3 interceptions last year. So he really tidied up his game. From a fancy monster point of view, which is what he was, a few years ago, I think it was 2021 where he topped 5,000 yards. I don't think that's happening again. But as you say, where he's starting to drop to, which is in that kind of QB 10 range, I think he could potentially be a bargain, and you could do a lot worse than him at quarterback. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Herbert, and I think he should have a really solid fantasy season.
I think as well, one thing sticking people's minds, was it 4 interceptions he had in that playoff game? After like 3 in season, that will stick in people's minds and could make him drop a little bit lower, potentially not. It depends what sort of league you're drafting in. But yeah, I really like Herb this year, and I can imagine I will end up with a fair few shares of him.
Right, let's move on to a position where it's been all change, huge changing of the guard at this position, and that's running back. And we start off with Najee Harris. So the ex-Steeler who has moved to Los Angeles. What do you think about Najee? What season is he going to have in Los Angeles?
He had a decent year last year. To be fair, I think I finished with RB20 when he drafted RB23, 12 points per game. He did what you expect a player who gets drafted around there to do. 10 top 24 finishes. Doesn't sound like it's setting the world alight, but that's what you get from a player that you're drafting at that stage, isn't it? I think he will be weekly flex play at the start of the season. I've got question marks about moving towards the end of the season potentially, and we'll discuss those reasons shortly. I think it will start as 1A, finishes the RB2. At cost at the minute, I think is a decent pickup. So his going is at RB33. I do think you probably take him a little bit earlier than that, but you just got to be prepared for the value to drop off through the season. One question mark is that eye injury. So a firework-related incident that I think first news out was that it was a horrific injury. And an eye injury for any athlete in any sport is a career ender potentially.
Not ideal.
Apparently, it's nothing to worry about. I'd still be quite, if I'd be hit in the eye with a firework, I'd still be quite worried. I have to think carefully about my wording. It's one to monitor. this one through the offseason, just in case. We have been not always given the most reliable information out of NFL medical setups when it comes to players. So this could be one that they're playing close to their chest. Yeah, it's just gone from being someone that I was really, really excited about and potentially sitting at a peak value. And that has taken a hit post-draft as well, though, for me.
Yeah, Najee is just very reliable. If you look at his 4 seasons in the NFL, he's had 1,000 rushing yards every year. He's had over 6 touchdowns every year. His receptions, admittedly, have dropped off from the rookie peak that he had, where he was up at 74. But he will do an excellent job. And I think weekly flex play could potentially undersell him. But I think one of the question marks when it comes to Najee Harris is his competition. Would you agree? When we look at who he's got snapping at his heels.
Absolutely. And Omarion Hampton is just such an exciting prospect and massively damaged Najee's fantasy value this year. Great move for the Chargers, having 2 running backs of that standard. So from footballing terms, brilliant move. From fantasy terms, very, very annoying. His numbers last year in college, then 281 attempts for 1,660 yards, 15 touchdowns. On top of that, 38 receptions for 373 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a decent body of work, I think it is fair to say. Great draft capital at pick 22. Only 10 running backs have been taken higher than that since 2011. He looks like he could handle a true workhorse load and could well end up being the RB1 for the Chargers, probably about, I don't know, maybe the third halfway point. I think he'll take that over. And I think second half of the season, if he's getting that workload, he will potentially be putting up some RB1 numbers, so top 12 finishes on the end of the season as well. I've got him as an emergent RB2 because I do think he'll be worked in. I think his development will be taken care of as he gets worked into the NFL style, which they can take their time with when you've got Najee Harris sat there. It makes perfect sense. But yeah, I do think he's a player that don't panic if he has a few quiet games to start the season. Absolutely keep on to, because he'd be paying back dividends by the time you get to the business end of qualifying for your fantasy playoffs and then potentially in a championship run.
Yeah, I think in any other year that was genty-less, Omarion Hampton would be a very clear RB1. He is he's just so talented. He's another one. Go and watch his videos. He looks great. I mean, there was one particular game that I made notes on last year. I think it was against Appalachian State. No, this was in 2023. Appalachian State. He ran for 26 times for 234 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, it's just insane numbers. And I think he could end up being, an absolute fancy beast. But he does have to fight his way past Najee Harris first, as you suggested.
And I think there's the comments would quite right come saying, "Oh yeah, but Appalachian State's not an effort." No, you can only run through the players that are in front of you, though, and he routinely ran through every human being in front of him. So yeah, when he was so dominant, we can expect that to transfer, I think, in some degree, can't we?
Indeed.
Before we move on, Ed, can we just take a moment to remind everyone to give us a subscribe, a like, and a share? And why not go and check out one of our 31 other deep dive shows as we profile all 32 NFL teams through the off season. I'm getting excited where we're moving on to now, Ed, as you well know.
Yes. I don't know whether I will just, sign off for a minute or two. But yeah, we're moving on to receiver. We're moving on to one of Mark's personal favourites, Lad McConkey. Go on, Mark. Take the floor.
What a lad. He's the exact wide receiver. We've spoken about this with a couple of players during it. He's the exact sort of wide receiver I love drafting for redraft. A year 2 receiver coming off the back of a solid rookie season, but solid undersells it. So wide receiver 13, when there were his doubters in the draft process about whether he was deserving of a kind of a high value pick. There was doubters when he was drafted about whether he would be of value in that Los Angeles offense. And they'll prove wrong. He turned 82 receptions into 1,149 yards and 7 touchdowns. Despite the run-heavy offense, despite some competition for targets arriving as well, I still think 130-ish targets for McConkey is on the cards. And of all players going around him on the draft board as well, so he's currently going off the board at wide receiver 11. I think he's got the safest floor of those players and a ceiling I'm still very happy with. I think Drake London's going just above him. I feel loads more confident with Lad McConkey as far as a constant floor. Drake London, yeah, the ceiling is higher with Drake London, but Lad McConkey's isn't bad. And on volume, he's got a heck of a lot of appeal to me when it comes to his ceiling.
Yeah, I think he went into the situation last year in Los Angeles, and you weren't really sure if he'd be able to, emerge as the true leader of the offense as wide receiver 1. But he quickly established himself as the go-to target for Justin Herbert, didn't he? And had a great rookie season. And he has got competition, but I think your projection of wide receiver 12 is probably fair. If you added on a couple more, which you probably need to when you're talking about McConkey, wide receiver 15 would probably be realistic. But I do like McConkey as well, and I think it will be exciting to watch how he and Justin Herbert work together next year.
He's just such an intelligent player as well. I think he drew a lot of comparisons to Cooper Kupp in the way that he reads the game and the way he talks about the game as well. So I just think that when we see a player like, and they're very different players, obviously, but it took Kupp a while to kind of build the progression. I think the fact that McConkey's come in and done what he did last year, and then you had someone who was clearly so very analytical of the game and their own performance, I do think he's a player we're going to be talking about for many years to come. And I know it's a redraft show, Dynasty, anywhere I could get him in a startup league for Dynasty, I'm very, very, very happy that I've got a player locked in for a good 7-8 years, potentially. It's me returning some value for me.
And we look at Lad McConkey, who is somebody who has very much fulfilled their potential, to move on to someone who I know you are not as positive about, and his competition in Quentin Johnston. You're going to be less effusive in your praise here now.
I've really enjoyed criticising Quentin Johnston over the years. He's featured in Zero's long time. I think I was sceptical about him in the pre-draft process because I didn't see how it was a transfer. Yes, I got that massively wrong. I forgot who it was last year. I was horribly wrong about when I said the same. But Brian Thomas Jr., he was a Quentin Johnston player that I just didn't see what people were talking about. I've not really seen it since. But of all the negatives I've said about Quentin Johnston, and we've said on the show over the last couple of years, the nice thing I think I could say is he wasn't terrible in 2024. He did have some fancy relevant games. He had 3 games where he was
the kindest thing you've ever said about him.
It is. He had 3 top 12 finishes. And he added another 1 then as a wide receiver 1-2, so top 24 finish. So he only gave you a return really in a quarter of his games, considering you drafted him as your wide receiver 24. It's the 50-50 split between finishing as a top 36 and outside the top 36, where I think it was about 4 of those games he got you fewer than 5 points. The biggest concern with Quentin Johnston is when he had those big games, did you play him? Because you weren't expecting it to happen. 700 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1.63 yards per route run. That isn't anything to ignore at all. But Los Angeles have drafted a round 2 receiver, so they can't be confident. And I would expect some regression in his numbers this year as well. So, yes, we saw that growth last year. No, he wasn't consistent. I've put potential streaming wide receiver because I just imagine most weeks on my bench or on waivers, there's going to be someone I feel a little bit safer plugging in rather than Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, he's not somebody I don't think I've got in anywhere. Quentin Johnston.
Just because you draft well, Edward.
Yeah, well, I wish that was the case, Mark. I've not got him anywhere. There were issues last year. I think he had 7 drops last year, which is not what you want from a receiver, obviously. And yeah, he will have some relevant weeks, but McConkey will be ahead of him. As we look at the third receiver, I wouldn't be surprised if this man, who we're about to talk about, Tre Tucker, emerges ahead of him.
Tre Harris.
Who's Tre Tucker? Oh, he's
We've just done him with Raiders.
Tight end with the Raiders. Too many names. Tre Harris. Tre.
So,
I call it.
Tre. There is a chance he leapfrogs Quentin Johnston in time for week 1. There's an even better chance, and I'd go as far to say I am very confident that early in the season, he is the wide receiver 2 on the LA Chargers over Johnston. Obviously, rookies are always a gamble, but out of the current rookie class coming in, yards per route run in the class 5.12, the best in the class. Yards per catch, 17.2, once again, best in the class. I think he's such a good complement for Lad McConkey. I think he's going to be such a useful target for Justin Herbert. He's excellent in contested catches. He's a bit of a sleeper candidate for me, if I'm honest. I think that he is a player potentially we will be talking about as being one of the value picks of the season by the time we get towards December.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned already in this series about what a strong wide receiver class it was. And Chargers had other needs in the draft, but I just don't think they could turn down Tre Harris when he dropped to them. Those stats are really impressive. And I also expect him to emerge ahead of Quentin Johnston as wide receiver 2. And Harris and McConkey are a very exciting partnership. I'm sure Justin Herbert is equally excited about them.
Yeah, I think going in round 11 where he's going at the minute, Tre Harris represents great value in drafts, potentially. I say with all of these wide receivers, there's also the chance that we don't speak much of them for the rest of the season. My favourite thing about Tre Harris, his actual name. Do you remember his actual name from our pre-draft show, Edward?
Definitely not Tre Tucker.
No, definitely not Tre Tucker.
I don't remember it.
Cleveland Joseph Harris III.
I can't remember. I can't believe I didn't remember that.
How did you forget that?
And we've got a bit of time, Mark, so let's finish off by talking about prospects for the Los Angeles Chargers this season. Do you see them having a successful 2025?
I wasn't going to talk much about the tight ends, but I was going to talk about them more than that.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah. Should we talk about the tight ends?
Yeah. They've got...
Okay. I forgot about
2 tight ends. I'm not really interested in them. Probably don't draft them. Genuinely, I've not got a lot to say about the tight ends, but yeah, Disley is like the blocker of the 2. If Conklin then emerges as a target, he could be someone that you want to look at as a streamer each week. That's the best chance of both of them, I think, really. There's a good chance we don't mention Conklin or Disley as far as any playable asset through the season. So, yeah, I didn't have a great deal said, but I did have at least 20 seconds on them.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have fantasy relevant weeks, won't they?
Yeah.
Both of them. But yeah, you kind of feel that Herbert one day does deserve an elite tight end because he certainly hasn't had that the last few years. Yeah. But yes, as I was saying, when it comes to the prospects of the Los Angeles Chargers, where are you? You've always been a sneaky Chargers fan.
I like the Chargers.
Is that fair to say? Do you think they'll start to really compete this year?
I do like the Chargers. Last year with J.K. Dobbins being in town, obviously I really, really enjoyed seeing that. They've got Lad McConkey, who obviously is one of my favourites. They've got Omarion Hampton as well. They're an exciting team coming into the season. And I just think, yes, the Broncos were expecting to kick on a little bit, but I don't think they are the finished article yet by any means. The Chiefs last year, we spoke about on our Chiefs show, a look isn't the fair thing to say about them getting the number of one-score victories they got. It's relentless work ethic and graft. But there is a situation where the Chiefs drop a few more of those games this year, and I don't think it's highly likely, but I wouldn't say it's impossible that we could see the Chargers challenging maybe this year. Certainly, they're going to want to have a playoff run, and I think a lot of that does rely on Lad McConkey kicking on, Tre Harris hopefully coming in as a real valid receiver, Omarion Hampton doing as we expect. And then if Justin Herbert does what we hope he can do, the Chargers are a dangerous team this season, I think.
Thank you, Mark. Well, I hope you enjoyed our deep dive of the Los Angeles Chargers. And if you did, feel free to check out any of the other deep dives that we've got available. But that's, I think, enough from us. I think it's goodbye from me. Goodbye from Mark. Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to Pestle and Ed of TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Instagram and Twitter.